Hello, hello. You have found another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. My name is Tom Singer, and we started this show 2.5 years ago so that we could talk about all kinds of things happening around our tech and business community here in Austin and introduce you to really interesting people. And today, we're going to take a look at a program that's been going on for over 40 years that's been hosted by Rotary Austin. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Rotary, you've probably heard of it. Your father might have belonged to a Rotary Club. We're going to tell you a little bit about that organization at the end and sort of encourage you of why you want to be giving back in some way to our community and why Rotary just might be the way that the tech community can get involved. But first of all, I would like to introduce you to Rick Rowell. He is the owner of CKR Marketing, and W. Gaines Bagby, who is a first vice president with CBRE. Rick, Gaines, welcome to Austin Tech Connect.
Good morning, Tom.
So, Rick, I'm new to meeting you. Gaines, I've known you for probably close to 30 years here in the Austin tech community. You've certainly been one of the leaders in helping tech companies find real estate space. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit better than I did? Gaines, we'll start with you.
Sure. Gaines Bagby. So as you can see in my background, they're not seeing this, right?
This is going to be audio, but they can imagine that you have a skyline, the skyline of Austin behind you. Yes.
There you go. Picture, if you will. So I help companies with a very large company, over 100,000 people in the world, very large commercial real estate firm. And my portion of it is that I mainly work with users of space. So think of 5, 10, 50,000 square foot need for space to house or for office space, a number of people for a particular business, whether it's tech or otherwise. And so there would be a need for either leasing the space or buying the space or developing the space. So we do all those things. So that's kind of my niche in it. We also do we have project managers that once we're done with the lease or the purchase, that we'll take that on and make the space exactly how the company wants it. But I work on the user side or the tenant side of the equation. That's what I do.
So I've known you, going back to our days in Young Men's Business League, and yes. I don't think either of us qualify as young men anymore. So I've known you probably 30 plus years. You've seen a lot of changes in real estate with all of the tech that's come, the huge explosion and boom that has happened here in Austin. What's the biggest change when it comes to real estate space in the tech world?
Sure. It depends on how many years you want to go back. You want to go back 5 years or 50 years? And I can talk about all that, right? Because I've been doing this for 40, so we'll call it 40 years. There was a big crash back in Austin back in the 80s. Some people may remember that, some may not. And there's been 4 cycles that I've seen. The most recent one, we talk about the other one some other time, but the most recent one is, let's call it from about the beginning of COVID, where the tech companies were driving. So thriving and driving and eating up lots and lots of space in the domain, in the downtown area, and other places up northwest and southwest and other places. And then during COVID, of course, we all went home. And a lot of the tech companies during that time and after, a lot of the tech companies decided, you know what, maybe we can do this from remote. Maybe we can do this with AI, and maybe we can. And so the driver for the commercial real estate kind of went a little bit dormant. And we're all kind of waiting to see if that really comes back or not. And who knows from here. But it seems like the other sectors are continuing on. Now, since the end of 2019, where we were about 11% vacant, we've gone to about 25 in office space. Bifurcated because other sectors like retail and industrial have different stories and very different than this. But in the office space market, we've continued to complete buildings. Now, at the beginning or at the end of 2019, we had about 6.5 million square feet under construction of new office space. Today, it's less than 2 million. So that pipeline that we kept seeing feeding this is about to end. In the next year, it'll be done. And after that, you won't see new office space for a while. So we'll start eating into that vacancy for a while. And I think what you'll find is over the next 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to take that from 25% down to 21%, down to 18, 17, 15, and pretty soon we're going to be back to 11%, which is about full occupancy.
Sure.
That's not going to, it's going to be like going through the last drought, out on the lakes, and how, if you remember, up until last month, we're kind of experiencing a drought, and all of a sudden, guess what? Boom, all the lakes are full again. So that's kind of the way it works in the commercial real estate industry. So while some people may look at that and say, hey, it looks like we got a lot of empty office space out there. We do today, but just wait.
Right. Now,
just wait.
Certainly, there's a lot of people who like to take a little slice of the pie and write the whole story and say, look at all the vacancy in Austin. But the reality is, if you've lived through all those cycles, as I've been here 34 years, you certainly know that the future is going to continue to boom when it comes to tech in Austin. So, Rick, let's move over to you. Why don't you give a short introduction about yourself and what is CKR Marketing?
Oh, well, basically CKR Marketing is a manufacturer's rep firm specializing in the electronics market. So how it all began for me, I arrived in Austin in '84, and at that time, the PC was the king. On North Burnett Road, all the PCs in the world, all the computers were being built at the IBM plant. And they had a problem. They had the capacitors they used were tantalum capacitors, and tantalum capacitors would explode if you put them in wrong. So if you put the anode where the cathode was supposed to be, they would just literally catch some fire, explode. So I had one of the only 2 manufacturers in the entire planet that made 3-legged tantalum capacitors. Okay. So I arrived, and within 1 month, I had orders, and I was making $9,000 a month on just capacitors and commissions, because they were buying so many for the PC and the AT. And of course, that went away. They moved it all to Boca, in production PCs, of course. So Dell picked up PCs Limited. So I started doing the same thing with them, and it grew with them, and it grew with the community after that. Met more and more engineers over time. Of course, Traycore, TI, ruled the roost here in Austin. They were the tech companies everyone wanted to do business with. So I spent that time doing that. So I went from components like capacitors, eventually moved down to building board level product, specified board level. Went from that, we started providing chipsets instead of board level products. So in other words, instead of populated boards, you had a chipset that replaced the populated board. Then you went on to board builds and complete solutions. And Dell led the group again because Dell decided not to make computers anymore. They were making laptops, and they were failing. So they decided, how do we get rid of this problem? So, and unfortunately, I was the point of failure because I was supplying the power supplies that melted the Dell computers, but that's a long story. So that's a true story. So anyway, we took and I found them a supplier in Japan, Mitsui Butsan, and they put Dell's name on it and shipped in portables. But Dell chose Sony eventually over Mitsui Butsan as their eventual supplier. So that's where they went with laptops, and that the whole industry here followed suit. They started going from that, just bought stuff with their name on it. And about the only player in the game was National Instruments for a while. So they were here. So as you can see, things just kept changing, ebbing and flowing, going this way and that. But we saw manufacturing just totally leave Austin in the 90s. It disappeared. There was no manufacturing. So what's a salesman supposed to do? I can't sell to the manufacturer anymore. So what happened is I happened on Capital Factory and yourselves, as a matter of fact, at ITC, because you helped me find out there's companies who had problems. They had a product and a great idea. They didn't know how to make it. So since about that time, my job has been as a problem solver. In other words, people don't understand how things get made. That's the most fun of my job, is people are just amazed. So that's what I do. I try to put together companies with the right supplier in the right manufacturing location, because China is not always the right solution. And So that's what I do now. And I've tried to retire, but it's like Al Pacino says, they keep pulling him back in. So I'm having fun. As Gaines know, I don't complain very much. I enjoy myself. So that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Well, the reason we have you, thank you both for your introduction. The reason we have you both here today is you're both active with Austin Rotary, and Austin Rotary has this program called Camp Enterprise that's been going on for over 40 years. And the idea is you take high school juniors, you take them through this weekend where local entrepreneurs come and speak to them about entrepreneurship and growing companies. And then over the course of the weekend, they come up with an idea for a company. They sort of design the idea, and then they present that idea. And there's about 9 or 12 teams, and you're getting ready to get this thing rolled up for the next version of this. And it's one of those things, you got to get the word out, right? Because obviously you want to have as many kids who are interested in entrepreneurship as possible participating in this. So Gaines, let me go to you. Tell us a little bit about this and how do you get the word out? You've been doing this for 40 years. How do you get the kids? How do you get them involved? And what are we looking to add for this year?
Thanks, Tom. Generally, we look to the high school counselors. So we have a bead on all the high school counselors all around through AISD and some of the other privates and Round Rock and Leander sometimes. And so we'll talk with them and say, hey, who do you have that would be a great entrepreneur? Who do you have that has that passion and interest? Some of the schools now have, which in the beginning they didn't, but now they have business programs within the high schools, which is great. Not all of them, but some of them. And at least they have students who their parents are entrepreneurs, or they know entrepreneurs, are somewhat familiar with what it means to start a business and to run a business and to see the value there. So that's kind of the way we typically go after that.
So, it's interesting. My kids went to LASA and the Ann Richards School. So two of the, kind of premier high schools here in Austin. And while neither one had sort of a business program at the time, my kids went through, both of them were made up of kids who were really ambitious about their careers. I mean, that's why they applied to go to LASA. That's why they went to the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders. And, so I kind of saw a lot of these types of programs that, came through and my kids were part of. My oldest was on the TEDx Youth Planning Committee for a couple of years. My youngest participated in an internship program that the Ann Richards School had where they sent kids out for a couple of weeks to intern with companies. But not all kids get exposed to this. So what can we do to make sure that we're getting the word out to maybe some of the schools where aren't traditionally sending people to your program?
Yeah. And, it's interesting to us. Unfortunately, it seems like that a lot of the interest comes from the West Side schools. We'd like to see more East Side. Unfortunately, we just don't see as much interest, and not for lack of trying, not for lack of contacting, not for I went to Aikens for, probably we had 3 or 4 years there where they have a business school within the school, which is great. And that would kind of roll over every year or two as far as the leadership there. But we had good experience with them. And for about 6 or 7 years, they didn't bring anybody. They're they didn't have it together. They didn't have the right, they didn't have kids that they would send. They didn't seem to get it. Whereas before they had, and I don't know what happened. I think last year they had a couple of kids, which is great. But really the West Side, St. Michael's had some great kids that I interviewed, just amazing kids in their own right. And part of that school, part of that's background, all kinds of things that you might imagine. But we're happy to take any kid that's interested, I say kids, students who are interested in learning and wants to be a sponge and wants to have something that leads up to a Shark Tank type experience so that they'll know how to do that. And that's our goal. I mean, Rotary, we understand, and that's why we started the program. We understand that everything in the driver in our country as far as producing resource is not government. It's not art. It's not, it is business. When business does well, whether that's a small business or a GM, or whatever, then the country does well. What was it they used to say, as GM goes, so goes the country, or whatever. I don't know how true that is, but it was a saying for a long time. So when business does well, people do well because businesses do well. And so they pay their employees, right? And the employees pay taxes, And then we're able to provide infrastructure and arts and all kinds of other things to the community. So, but it starts with business, and we understand that.
So it's interesting because you've been doing this program, Rotary Austin, for over 40 years. And when I think back, I've only lived here 34 years. There's always been sort of that entrepreneurial vibe in Austin, but it's certainly grown over the last 15 or 20 years. What are the changes that you've seen in the program since you've been involved with it, Gaines?
Well, it's interesting. When I started, there was a Herb Miller, who was a professor at UT.
I know Herb. Yeah. Herb's yeah.
So I got to watch him for a couple of years, and then the third year I was involved in the program. Somebody, the chair of the Camp Enterprise that year, came to me 30 days before the program and said, "Gaines, you're doing the business plan this year." So, what do you mean? Herb Miller's doing. Dr. Miller's doing this. He's always done it for 20 years. What do you mean? Oh, he's getting married again that weekend. I said, "Oh, we'll have to move it." No, you don't understand. We can't move the camp. It has to be all you. So, so here I am. And so I designed, he worked off of foils. He told stories, worked off, remember foils, right? You write on the lit screen and it projects it, overhead projector up onto the screen. That's how he taught.
So 2/3 of the people listening have no idea what an overhead projector is, but keep going.
Yeah. So I decided, look, I need some pictures, right? Because every picture tells a story, and a picture's worth how many words, that kind of thing. And so I put together a slide presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and it wasn't a tremendous amount of slides, but it told stories. And I'm essentially using that same presentation. I've updated it. The iPads have changed a little bit. The phones have changed the different, the stuff that I have pictures of has changed a little bit. But the concept, the basics, the foundation of starting a business hasn't, right? The ideas you put into it can change, but the way you start a business and the way you bring everybody together and put the right people in the right seats on the bus, right, to move the thing forward hasn't changed a bit. The ideas certainly change, and then it'll continue. And I think that's great. But I would have changed stuff if I had to, but I don't need to, right? Just update the pictures pretty much. There's a couple of minor little things, but business, the foundation for business, just like the concrete under a building, that doesn't change. You might make it 6 inches or 8 inches thick, but it's still concrete. All that stuff still works.
So Rick, you're newer to Rotary Austin, so you're thus newer to this program. What's the message that you think the community needs to hear about Camp Enterprise and why it's an important program? Well,
one of the things is we make the kids concentrate on physical goods. We don't let them do software or esoteric things because that's not really developing a product per se. And it makes each of them find out their own worth because each team picks a CEO, a CMO, a CTO, a CIO. They each pick somebody whose specialty is their specialty. And it's funny is that every year we run into a kid who didn't know they were an accountant, and they love numbers all of a sudden. They're whizzes at numbers. And we run into a kid who didn't realize that they were pretty good at marketing products. And every year it comes that way. And the biggest, I've gotten hugs. I've only been involved with the last three because we stopped during COVID. So the last three is ones I've been involved with, last three Camp Enterprises. We've literally gotten hugs from parents because their kid was STEM. Their whole life was STEM. They're focusing on math or something. They're just totally wound up, right? And all of a sudden they found out, man, business is really interesting. Their parents are amazed. We had one girl who had a full ride. She was looking at a full ride scholarship to go to Michigan or something for engineering. Her father cried. He was so happy. She was going to a business school instead of to the electrical engineering or the mathematics school. It was amazing because these kids, it's great to watch them wake up, that they found out there's a lot more to a company than just having an idea and making it manufacturable or putting it together and putting a flag up and saying, well, my bed mousetrap does not work today, right? You don't put out there and everybody goes, wow. You have to have a message. You have to have a value,
So when are signups? When should people be trying to spread this word to their kids schools, to their nephews, their nieces, their grandkids? When is it that people sign up and when is the event?
Well, the event this coming year is always in February. It'll be February 20th to 22nd on 2026. But as soon as school starts, the kids start. We start getting feedback from some of the people who work with us. Gaines said they start giving us some names or that. We start looking at people, and we actually had last year. Gaines will tell you, it was nice. We had kids call from the high school that's in North Leander. We had kids call from Round Rock High School. We had kids call from Aikens because we hadn't had anybody there in a while. But these kids want to get involved because they find out about it. And we would love to have kids from Del Valley or East Side, and that kind of thing. So I think getting the word out and the kids knowing that this exists and it's available to everybody. There's no buy-in. We supply everything. That is what it'd be great for the parents to do. And the school counselors really have to understand that we're there to help the kids and enjoy themselves. Because we get pushback from a couple of counselors because they think we're just advertising ourselves. And we're not. We're really working for the kids.
Andy Roddick has a saying, if I can remember it right, the interest, right? The aptitude or whatever of people is universal, right? But opportunity is not. What we're providing here is opportunity for everyone, for anybody who wants to learn how to start a business and hopefully start one or two or three, right? We're offering that opportunity for folks that may not have had that opportunity, may not have seen it, may not have had it available easily to themselves.
You know what's amazing, Tom, I think you should think about is already a lot of these kids, even in the East Side schools, even the lower income schools, are involved in their own companies. They have Depop sites or they have Etsy sites. I mean, they have sites themselves that they're trying to sell product because they're trying to increase their income. And that's the kind of people we love to have. That we're helpful to them. And so this is not unusual. These kids are already out there doing that. Their parents just sometimes don't know.
So when I think of Rotary International, I think of this large international organization that does a lot of good. But this is a program that is specifically Austin. This is a product of Rotary Austin. Why is this something that is just here? Why isn't this something that Rotary has picked up across the world?
We started it here. We have a fair number of folks in this organization here locally. I think they have one in Kansas City. There may be one in Dallas, and they may be structured a little bit differently. It takes a certain amount of people. We'll need 30 or 40 adults, 30 or 40 people who are savvy about starting businesses and owning your business, to attend so that they can back the kids up, the students up, right? So it's not everywhere. The average Rotary club's probably 25 or 30 people, and the average large club is over 200. So only really the large clubs could really have the capacity to do something like this. And their interest may be elsewhere. It may be building water wells somewhere. It may be, building hospitals like we've done in our club in Africa, let's say. So there's all kinds of different interests. The primary focus of Rotary has been, since 1985, is curing polio. And I just have to say this because this is like the project that we've had. In 1985, we coalesced around curing polio in the world. At the time, most people don't know, 350,000 new cases in 1985. Last year, 99 cases. Wow. So we're almost there. So, but we're not going to look for the next thing until we're finished. And we're almost finished. Smallpox being the first disease been cured, polio will be the second. And Bill Gates has been a big part of that. We've probably given $2.5 billion. He's probably given Bill and Melinda, I should say, their foundation, right? So great partners there.
So this sounds like it is such an Austin thing, right? This is the type of thing that our tech community should be behind. That's the reason I invited you guys onto the podcast to talk about it a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about giving back to the community in general. I'm a real big believer that when it comes to community and when it comes to giving back, real leaders show up. And yet in our society, people aren't joiners the way they used to be. Gaines, when we go back 30 plus years here in Austin, Austin Rotary was a giant club. The last time I visited, there were 50 people. I don't know how many there are now. That was kind of coming out of COVID, but people aren't joiners. They don't participate in such things, and they don't look for ways to be involved with charitable organizations. Same thing is true with, we were both involved with the Young Men's Business League. It used to meet every week, and you'd have to shoehorn 80 or 100 people into a room that could barely hold that many. They now meet monthly, and they have a good turnout, but I don't think it's the same thing. So society has changed a little bit. Why do you think it's important for leaders and people in tech to be involved with something that serves the community? Maybe Rotary, maybe something else. Why do you think it's so important?
I think service is important, and I don't think I understood that till probably I got somewhere in college or just out of college, because I just didn't understand it, and now I understand it so well. The JC, the Junior Chamber of Commerce that I was in, years and years ago, said service to humanity is the best work of life. That was part of their motto. In Rotary, it's service above self. So service above self, and there's service again. And what I find is it's like there are rules in the world that you really can't get around. One of them is the law of gravity. If I hold something in my hand, up at eye level, and I let go of it 100 times out of 100, what happens? It falls. It goes to the ground, right? And if that's just it's like that service. If I do something for somebody else, especially if they can't do anything meaningful back, to me, for me to provide a service to me, if I do that, it comes right back to me. It doesn't come from that person. A lot of times it goes all around the world, but if you're looking, you can see when you're making a difference, it comes back to you. I think of a guy that just passed away here very recently. Some people may know of Cousins Properties, and they're the largest commercial property owner in the country. Well, certainly in Austin, they are. They're millions and millions of square feet. And Tom Cousins passed away at 93, I think the 29th of July. And he was such a good man. Everybody should go read his obit. I was like, I wish they'd say this about me when I die, right? But I can't, because I've done a lot of things. I've done nothing compared to Tom Cousins. He's so service-minded. He helped so many people do so many different things. He was involved on so many levels in service. And he had one of the most successful commercial real estate firms that's ever been created. And he was this great guy. Just because you're a good guy doesn't mean you can't be a great business person. Doesn't mean your company can't thrive. In fact, I think it really helps.
I along those same lines that Gaines talking about how even in today's world, my sons, of course, in their 20s, both talk about, service being fulfilling for us, but is it fulfilling for others? And I said, what a weird question, because Gaines' middle son told me one time the best line ever. We're filling food to send overseas, and we're filling these things. And he says, I'm doing something that makes me feel good because I'm trying to do something. And when this package arrives in the hands of the people who need it, they feel good. They don't care about anything else. He said, why do I have to care? And that's exactly right. Just feeling good about dealing good. There's nothing bad about that. And we are involved. Rotary's involved. I don't think you know this, with schools, with children, all the way from elementary and pre-K, all the way through postgraduate work. In fact, we have scholarships for people who are out of school 10, 15 years and want to study something new. So we're involved all the way through because we feel that we're feeding the funnel. We're giving the kids the right tools, the right education, the right help, and they're seeing people who are encouraging them, other adults, saying, come on, let's go. I want to say we have a program called EFK. We don't have to go into it, it's a long story, but it's done at certain grade schools by one of our leading people, Mary Reynolds. And we have this woman who comes in a night outfit, and she nights all these kids for the behavior in school, not their education, not their grade point average, for the behavior towards other students and to the general community. I'm telling you, I have been to these, as Gaines and I go to these regularly. The parents show up. I mean, we're talking about these kids have not seen their two parents together often because mom's working or dad's working, they're both working. They're never there. They're long hours. So I'm talking about parents are coming in. Mom works at the local fast food place. Dad has paint all over his clothes, and they're standing there because their kid's being honored for the behavior, and they're proudly standing there. And that means a tremendous amount to me, that mom and dad show up. That's really good.
So as you look at the population of Austin Rotary, how much of it is the tech community, would you say?
Well, we're all over the place because what happened to Austin Rotary is we split into sects, different locations. So the different locations have split off our membership in different groups. And Gaines can talk better. I'm sure like Rotary Northwest is different from Rotary University area, from your Rotary Westlake, from, you know what I'm saying? There's so many Rotaries now that it's tough. I think the category is one. Gaines would know more about our makeup, but I think he'd agree that when I look around the room and hear people talk about it, we have a lot of CPAs, a lot of people in education or post-graduation. In other words, they work, former educators or that. We also, what do we say, Gaines? We have a lot of different companies, small company owners.
Oh, yeah, we have a fair amount of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We have financial people, financial consultants of different types, lawyers, of course. I mean, it's pretty broad based.
Oh, and Ron Mullins.
Broad based, yeah. Political people, Ronnie Reynolds. There are a number of people that you would recognize in the organization, and so I think it's pretty broad based. Nice. We'd love to have more tech people. We have a few, and we have some web designers and different things, but we'd love to have more tech people. That'd be great. I think they get a lot out of it.
I do.
I always make the point that it doesn't matter what you belong to, but you should be participating in 2 or 3 things around town that help make the community better. And so if somebody's listening, maybe Rotary is what you check out. Maybe it's something different, but you and your senior team should be participating in things around the community because it's the only way we make this community better. Hey, Rick Gaines, any last words?
Yeah, everybody is allowed to come as often as they want to Rotary. You can be our guest forever, but please come. We have great speakers. We had Mayor Watson just shortly speak, so it's great.
I spoke last year. You
did. You absolutely did. Yeah, and the head of ERCOT spoke. I mean, we have a pretty good, pretty good selection of great speakers from around the community that you would want to hear. And maybe some of them you don't know, and they're behind the scenes somewhere, like Pablo Vegas. He's amazing. And he's running our ERCOT. Remember how we had problems in 2021, 2023, and I think largely behind the scenes, he's changed some things. He's changed the landscape of that. So, I mean, speakers like that, and he's a great speaker as well. So, yeah, come on out. Check us out. You may like it.
Nice. Well,
I don't want to embarrass you, Tom, but I just want to tell you, I was a member of YMBL as well, too, with Gaines. That's where I met him. So I knew you there. I actually known your name for quite a while. So
I apologize for not remembering that. I loved to end an episode of Austin Tech Connect where someone just throws me under the bus for not remembering them from 34 years ago. So, thank you. Thanks for that, Rick. I won't forget you again. So
stop very much.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And everybody, where can they find information about Camp Enterprise?
Yeah, type in Rotary Club of Austin and it will come up. It comes right up on my feed. I hope it will on yours as well.
Awesome.
Rotary Club of Austin. Just do a Google search or however you get your stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here on the show and promoting such a good program that you're doing. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. I say it every time we do the show. If it wasn't for the audience, why would we do this? So make sure that you're sharing Austin Tech Connect with everybody in your company and all of your friends in the tech community. We'll see you next week with another interview.